GitLab, and welcome to the group conversation for the people team today. Carol Teskey and I are pleased to host. We have members of the people team and team members from GitLab that have joined. We'll take a little time to, Cassiana, thank you for loading a question. The question is, and I'll let you vocalize if you care to.
Sure, Dave. It's just, I would love to, and I'm sure more people would love to know more about this CPO search. Thank you, Dave.
Absolutely, happy to share an update. We are deep into the search to find GitLab's next CPO. We're casting a very wide net, talking to tons of amazing, talented leaders from around the world. Our focus is to find someone who has been the chief people officer, running the people function for an organization of at least GitLab scale, scope, global reach. We're looking for someone with a strong alignment with GitLab's credit values and a experience in a growth and fast-paced iterative environment. And we're prioritizing, as always, diversity in this search and welcoming referrals from team members, from investors, and we're sourcing aggressively. We just got, actually, we're not sourcing aggressively, we're sourcing diligently, using more inclusive language than aggressively. We are, just this week, I'm grateful to one of the leaders in GitLab. I won't name that individual because that will give a clue as to who our candidate might be, came forward with a fantastic referral who had worked with him at a previous company, and we're getting her into our process and starting the introductions literally as we speak. And we have high hopes for her as a potential strong candidate to enter the process and go through the interviews. We're having front-end interviews with Sid and our search partners, as well as then Carol, Dave, Robin Schulman, and then the rest of E-Group is the loop that we've constructed. And we just invited Rich Khan, our executive recruiter, to the party, just to bring a set of fresh eyes and perspective to the search, because we've been at this for a little while. And sometimes it's helpful just to even approach sourcing from a different angle and perhaps unearth or discover or rediscover a candidate. The beauty of searches that take this long, they're hard, but when you've taken this much time in the market, you might come back to somebody who on your first pass, when you reached out, the timing wasn't right, their readiness to engage wasn't high, but with the passage of time and with some reflection about the opportunity, when they hear from you again, they might change their perspective. So we're leveraging all of those channels, and we're confident that we'll have somebody amazing at the company. I was committed to seeing us make a Q2 offer. I'm going to fail in that personal OKR, but I'm going to recommit to a Q3 offer, except for a chief people officer, and I'm confident that we can deliver on that goal.
So Dave, I haven't typed a question, but the CPO search that you're looking for, obviously there's some real key criteria for that. Maybe you could give us a bit of an insight into what's the ideal candidate look like?
Track record of success leading the people function. We've had some really good candidates that have led parts of the people function for organizations. We want someone that's really been in that executive, the equivalent of our E-Group at a company at GitLab scale and global reach and pace, ideally in tech, but we're open to other industries, and really looking for someone that's been in that role and successfully demonstrated that through data and through metrics, they can drive the kinds of initiatives that we care about at GitLab in terms of L&D, people development, talent acquisition at scale, DIB, where our interview process is all about understanding through data and quantitative verification of success results at prior companies that leaders have been at, running the people teams at companies.
Thanks, great.
Thanks for the question, Debbie.
Thanks. Sorry, Dave. I have another question along those lines as well. I didn't type it in, but just with the CPO hire, is there opportunities to have the candidate interview with members on the team outside of the E-group at that level to get an understanding of kind of what's happening more in the trenches as well? Talking to folks like myself or others, or just curious.
Our loop today, because it includes all of E-group and a board member, and the interview process with the outside recruiter is pretty extensive. So I don't know that we'll add more interviews to the process, but we might do, and I think I've seen this happen before with other leadership searches, is if we get to a finalist stage with somebody, perhaps having them meet with other leaders from the people group more as a meet and greet last stage than necessarily as a selection criteria interview as part of the process. The two interviews that are selection-based interviews from the people team are Dave and Carol.
Got it. Thanks.
We'll do our best to represent and hold the bar very high for the team.
I know you will.
It does bring up a good point though. Should we be, are there specific things that the team would want us to hone in on? You know, we're very open to that feedback and you calling that out, and we'll make sure we can cover it.
Hey Dave, I have the next question. And Carol, my question is, what has been your greatest challenge with the CPO search that you've found so far?
I think couple things. Thanks for the question, Susan. And I think there's some, first of all, we're recruiting a chief people officer. Usually the people that we're reaching out to are sitting CPOs today in good jobs at companies that are well respected. And they're in a role, especially during the pandemic, where they feel a strong sense of stewardship to their organization and to their team members at the company they're serving today. So getting their attention and getting them to engage in a dialogue with us about a potential change is sometimes a challenge. We're up for that challenge, and we're even using, like we would in sourcing for any role, right? The multi-touch outreaches through different sources. We had just in the last week or two examples of candidates that we thought looked outstanding and who weren't responsive to our direct outreaches, either mine or the search firms. And we leveraged direct contacts and connections to get personal introductions to them, like through an investor, for example, or in one case, I'm connected to a former boss and mentor of a candidate who hasn't responded yet. I'm calling in a favor with that leader to say, can you introduce us to that individual? And it would be really appreciated to at least start a dialogue and totally understand if it's not something she's interested in, but coming from you might carry more weight than coming from me. So we'll see. We're leveraging those types of techniques to overcome potential reticence that people might have about even listening to an opportunity at this time.
Yeah, and the only thing I'd add to that, I will echo all that Dave has said, Susan, is we have really strong values here, and it's imperative that whoever comes on board is on board with our values and is really going to help drive them forward. So that's definitely one lookout as well, that, you know, a lot of candidates may have excellent experience, but are they going to really help us keep our values and iterate on them? So that's the only additional point I'd add there.
Thank you, Carol and Dave. Appreciate that perspective.
Dave and Carol, I also have a question regarding the CPO. I don't know if it was covered before, But in terms of the pipeline, because I don't think we have that kind of visibility, are we focusing on location diversity?
We are. Thanks, Katerina, for the question. We're searching globally for this role. We've had a few candidates that we've gotten into the process who are not based in the Bay Area or even not based in the US. And so our outreach is very much about, let's look for the best person wherever they might be. In fact, I talked to a candidate last week who we decided not to move forward with. Great candidate, but not quite yet ready for this role. And part of what made us so attractive to her was she's based in the Bay Area today with her current company, but she's contemplating a move within the US to a location I won't mention. But with her planned move, our all remote model was particularly attractive to her. So we want to find the candidate who may already have made that move or might be in the back of their mind considering it as part of the search strategy that will help to make us stand out as a really winning opportunity uniquely to that really special candidate that we want to attract.
And that point I'd add to that as well, Katerina, is that it's global. We are looking globally. It's not just US based. It's going to be the right candidate regardless of whether they're in the US or not.
Perfect, thank you.
Nicole, I think you're up if you're okay to verbalize your question, please.
Sure. And I'm not sure if I'm articulating this clearly, but how are we considering like the fatigue that people might go through, being that we have 360 reviews, weekly one-on-ones, we have competency reviews, we're supposed to have a career conversation. And I think there's even one more methodology, at least for product management, that we go through to see how we're aligning. And each one of these has slightly different objectives. And so it seems like you're trying to, or at least for me as an individual contributor, I'm trying to go 4 different directions and it's constantly changing. And then we cycle back to the other one because all 4 are still active, but then like you concentrate on each one and they don't seem to actually mesh well.
Yeah, I'll start and the rest of the team can jump in here. So we agree that there's so many different mechanisms that can be used in an organization. So we do have OKR or KR, I should say, out there at the moment to take a step back and look at, okay, what does talent development, what does a program look like in GitLab? How do you work on your development, your performance? How does that relate to compensation? So Nadia is leading the project for that, and we are having representatives from all of the different divisions in the company to make sure we're getting a product mindset on it, a sales and engineering, etc. Because what all of these, we want them to be, and they need to be productive and useful and not just a tick the box exercise, because that's not an efficient use of time and it's not going to help us continue to scale as an organization. So we do hear you and thank you for verbalizing the question as well. It is something that we are cognizant of. If anyone working on that project wants to jump in, feel free to add anything there.
Nicole, to me, I think once we bring this together in a talent development plan or a talent development program, I nearly think it would be less things all at once from all angles and potentially teams doing different things and really bringing it into one space. And then having a calendar available for the year and knowing what's coming. So I think planning, number one, like I think that would be a great change once we know how this will work. But going through hypergrowth last year, it was hard to work on these things. And so we're really excited to be working on them now. I'll link the KR. Oh, I think it's in our slides and it's linked there. If you want to comment on that issue, please do and participate. We'd absolutely love some feedback and ideas.
And a slight follow on to this, just because outside of day job, I run a nonprofit based on diversity. Are we making sure that these are being designed so that there is encouragement for people to step back and not do everything all at once, because if you write someone's review and then immediately give it to the person versus write someone's review and step back, or write someone's review and have a peer help you review it for bias, you're more likely to more fairly review the people you have reporting to you. Have we built anything into the system or any training into the system to make sure that we are enabling everyone to be as unbiased as possible in all these review mechanisms?
Currently, from my understanding, skip levels will be able to see those reviews, and I would highly encourage any manager to be discussing 360 reviews with their managers and their more senior folks and going through the feedback before they share it with the team. If that feedback isn't clear in the 360 handbook, I'd be happy to make sure we go and create that update. In the actual the talent assessment tool that we're looking at, we do want to make sure that we report on things that are inclusive and that does consider diversity specifically. So making sure that we don't have specific race or gender at that high potential, high performing only. So we do want to make sure we're reporting on things like that. But I think you're more talking about the way you're sharing the feedback, the time that you've added it in those one-on-ones. Is that what you?
Not sharing the feedback. We can derail this into a separate conversation, but and I'm sure Candace has tons of thoughts on this one, but the way that you review your people, if you don't step back and then give yourself time to look at all of it across, you may not realize you have an affinity bias and you're rating someone more positively because they more recently did a project that you understood better than somebody else. And so you may unfairly be giving certain people advantage without even realizing it, without intending it. And just when training someone, hey, make sure you write everyone's feedback for the year as a manager, take a step back and then read all of them together. So you're looking at it as a unit and you will spot your own biases that way. There's simple training things like that that you can make part of, hey, managers, here's how you do the reviews, that can help reduce any unfairness.
I don't want to add work for you, but the way you just described it, I feel like that is not in our 360 feedback guidance, and I would absolutely love to have it there. So if you're up for it, to send over an MR, we would really like to take a look, and I think that is guidelines we should be adding. So thank you for that contribution and raising it.
And then I think I have the next one too. For slide 9, I know that we're trying to get some outside speakers and we didn't originally have budget. Is there any chance that we're arranging that to have budget for any non-GitLab speakers? Because asking people to come in and speak and not paying them, especially during a pandemic, seems not like the nicest thing.
I can take that if you want me to, and anybody else feel free to jump in. So Nicole, you probably saw the link. We can communicate a lot where we're doing the speaker series, and those that we have coming into the pipeline to speak the last week of this month and going into August, they are externally. They're not requesting a fee right now. So we have been fortunate enough to have discussions with people who really just are very passionate about the work that's being done. And typically when you're working, as you probably know, with your nonprofit externally, people want to spread the message. So, you know, if you're working for a corporation that looks different than a nonprofit, there may be some financial ask with that. So, but so far to date, we haven't had that. Definitely open in having, you know, if you have some thoughts from additional speakers that you found pretty powerful in your work outside of GitLab, would love to talk more about that.
Candace, what's the best way to make a recommendation? Because I know myself and probably a lot of other folks here have through our network people who would be a fantastic speaker. For example, my husband's boss is amazing. She's the SVP CIO, and she's also a diverse leader. And so and I know she would love to come to speak at GitLab without a fee. So how do we, if we have really great ideas and recommendations of folks that we have from our past, put them into, for you or whoever to review those?
So I will drop into the document and into the chat our speaker series where you can drop in the issue that's open for it. But I will also, you know, also feel free to Slack me directly or drop it into the DIB channel, the Slack channel. But for just SSLT purposes, I'll drop the issue into the document so that people can comment there.
Thanks, that's awesome.
No, thank you. I love that.
Sorry, I added the wrong link, so you can just ignore that. There it is. Okay, Dan, I think you had the next one.
Dan, are you still on? And if you'd like to verbalize, otherwise we'll do it for you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. Too many mics, none of them working. Sorry. I wanted to ask about the country conversions that are going on. I've had 2 instances of reports kind of calling me in a panic about imminent changes that that are going to happen to them. And I'm wondering, what are we doing, or what can we do more to make sure that the affected employees feel that their concerns are heard and considered, and that they're actually being taken seriously. An employee feeling like they're going to get a 30% salary cut off the top and they can't do anything about it, even if that's not what eventually is the plan, is not a happy employee. So can we speak to that?
Hey, Dan, I can speak, and the people specialist team is welcome to answer this as well. I don't have to be the only one talking about this. I think there's a bunch of things we look at, but there's one thing we cannot change. And if I hear 30%, I don't want to make assumptions, but it sounds like income taxes. GitLab cannot change or influence the income taxes in a location. That being said, we strive to have a employment scalable solution in any location in the world. And so it's super important to realize that anyone coming to GitLab as a GitLab IT BV contractor, sorry, my earphones died, and so I didn't have any handy ones. So if anyone can't hear me, or there's any bad sounds coming from my end, I'm sorry about that. But yeah, it's really important to consider that as we continue to scale, we need to eliminate risks. And one of those risks are having contractors in different locations in the world. And so we set up employment scalable solutions that ends up with income taxes, which most of us have. And so if the drop is based on that, we cannot influence or change that. What we could do is make sure that the contractor rate is replaced with great benefits. And the total rewards team is doing an amazing job in making sure we can even validate the exact percentages. And if we then can't take the contractor rate in its entirety because we cannot replace it with benefits, we will then do a different recommendation to Paul, our CFO, the finance and risk and tax team. Does that help answer your question?
Thanks, Nadia. Partially. So I get it that income taxes are what they are, and I absolutely know that you guys are doing everything you can to work within what's laid out, and it's different from country to country and different impacts. And in one country, being part of a PEO is desired, in another it's the opposite, etc. So it's a hard job you guys have. I understand that. I guess I'm speaking more to the change management part of this process. And the people who are affected feeling like they're part of the conversation and that they're being heard about their concerns, as opposed to it being handed to them, hey, this is happening and it's on a tight time schedule, guess what? And then hence them feeling like they have to react suddenly before something happens to them that they have no control over.
Yeah, I think this is a great question, because there's a piece of our transparency at GitLab is that we open up these issues before we actually know the end result. And one thing that Nadia and her team do a great job of as well is to be able to ask for that feedback. So I think it's something about switching a bit of the conversation around. This isn't it's going to happen to you, you have no choice. It's here's the issue where we're looking through all of the different options. Please provide your feedback. They're also the subject matter experts in the country as to what is the cultural norms, what they might expect being hired as an employee. So having that central issue to post that feedback, it's actually, we want that to be empowering to team members, not frightening. So I think, one thing that managers can definitely help with is if they're hearing these concerns coming from their team members, to post that, whether it's the benefits related issue, whether it's the conversion related issue, so that we can assess what the impacts are, not only to the business, but also to the team members, and be able to get to the end result that everybody understands why we're getting to that end result and how we, received at that conclusion.
I'd love to voice my opinion as somebody who's affected by this process. You're looking at the country that I live in now. Dan really kind of verbalized what my feeling was in the beginning. Like, oh gosh, it was listed as blocked. My country was listed as blocked. So I deprioritized even thinking about it. And all of a sudden I got pinged that, okay, you're up next. And here are the 12 things we're going to do. And then we're going to convert you. And so I got this sense of panic right away. But once then I shared my concerns on the issue. I said, you know, I'm a little worried about this. Can we do some analysis? And then the process was better explained. Basically, Nadia, what you just explained, that you're going to go through it. You're going to look at the analysis, see if benefits don't make up the difference. And if it is significant, then we will raise to see if there's anything else that can be done. All of that honestly made me feel so much better. I think maybe as you stand up the next country and the next country, that should be the first thing you should say. And whether something can be done or not in terms of filling the gap, I at least feel so much better that it's being done, and ideally that it will be done transparently in issues so that we can follow along. So as somebody affected, I really appreciate that you're going through that analysis process and then escalating if there is something that you're concerned about.
Great. I'm happy to hear that. We did iterate on the template. So I'm going to link the template. Please have a look, Dan. That might be helpful as well. We've now phased in phases to show where we're at, and a little bit more communication at the top so that when someone looks at it, that they know exactly what to expect. Great. Thanks for the feedback. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think we're at time as well. Alex, thanks for keeping time and making sure we stay to it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.
Bye.